Good evening to all of you. We are assembled here for a lecture to commemorate the contribution of SRÍMAD APPAYYA DİKŞITA. This has been celebrated as Appayya Dikshita Day in many parts of our country, and the Kuppuswami Research Institute and the Sanskrit Academy. Both the institutions have also been holding lectures annually as SRÍMAD APPAYYA DİKŞITA Day, and this year we are going to have this day under endowments both from KSRI as well as the Sanskrit Academy. In the Kuppuswami Research Institute, we are holding this lecture under CKA LAKSHMANA Sastri Endowment. This was instituted by Dr. E.R. Ramabai, former professor and head of the Department of Sanskrit, Madras University. In fact, till date, she has been the only lady to head the department. And she used to come here almost daily. She was a member of our governing body also. And she has also created a chair in our institute. And this endowment she created in the name of her grandfather, Professor K.A. Lakshmana Sastri, who was the professor of Mimamsa and later principal of Madras Sanskrit College, who was well versed with Vedanta, Vyakarana and other Shastras. And in the Sanskrit Academy, we are holding this lecture together with the KSRI under two endowments, namely Upadhyaya S. Kuppuswami Sastri Memorial Endowment, which was instituted by one professor who adorned the chair in Madras Presidency College, namely Professor R.N. Sampath, who was also a Shastra Chudamani professor at our research institute, and Dr. V. Raghavan and V.R. Ramamurthy Endowment. V. Raghavan, this Dr. V. Raghavan is a medical doctor and not the well-known, internationally well-known Sanskrit scholar, and his son V.R. Ramamurthy, both of them endowed a lecture to commemorate SRÍMAD APPAYYA DİKŞITA's contribution. And this year, to talk about the multifaceted personality, we have got another multifaceted personality, Dr. R. Mahadevan. He has been the director of Simpson Co. for many years. For those of you who do not know much about him, he is the first set of graduate from Madras IIT. When Madras IIT was started, he was the first student, and he used to share some of his experiences, how they used to travel by boat from Saidapet those days to IIT, which was like a forest. Then subsequently he did MTech and PhD in automobile engineering, and he is very well known throughout our country for his contribution in this subject. In fact, he is a member of some of the committees of Government of India. He is also a member of our governing body at the KSRI. He is also a member of the academic committee in the academic council in the Sanskrit department, Madras University, as an industrialist. And he is a member of the syndicate of Gindi Engineering College, that is Anna University, as well as in the research committee of IIT Madras. Besides all these things, he has been reading quite a lot in Sanskrit literature, especially Indian philosophy. He has already talked about Appayya Dīkshita in various platforms, as well as given some lectures here on Shivadvaita also, and his primary interest being Tirumala's contribution. In fact, in his place called Satanur near Sirgari, he is maintaining a temple for Tirumular, and every year he is holding celebration there. And he takes that opportunity to publish a book on his own on Tirumular, various aspects of Tirumular. He started giving explanation to 100 verses in a small book, followed by 2 other books, 100 verses each. Then he came up with a book on Ashtanga Yoga in Tirumular, and then Pati Pashu Pasa in Tirumular. Like that, he has been doing a lot of work on Tirumular. All this he has been doing silently and not for any monetary expectations. And Dr. Mahadevan has chosen the topic today, STOTRA GRANTHAS of ЩΡީMAD APPAYYA DİKŞITENDRA. And I think it is very rightly so, because Appaya Dikshita has sung in praise of Mahadeva. Today this Mahadevan sir is going to talk about Appaya Dikshita. And Appaya Dikshita has contributed to all branches of Sanskrit literature in Alankara Shastra, Sahitya, and then all schools of Indian philosophy. And it is said that more than 100 books were written by him. And it is very difficult to find such a personality. He still stands unmatched. So, Sarvato Mukha Pandityam Appayaryasya Sadguroho Drishtva Shrutva Vayam Stabdhaha Manishyoyam Uta Ishvaraha. Manishyoyam Uta Ishvaraha. And one of the very famous stotras of Appaya Dikshita is Margabandhu Stotra. So many of us used to sing it during our young days, and it starts with Shambho Mahadeva Deva. So I just wrote it while coming from home. Mahadevo Appayaryena Stotra Granteshu Pujitaha Adhuna hi Appayaryastu Mahadevena Pujyate. So it is quite opposite, Viparita. So with these few words, I welcome all of you, and I thank Dr. Mahadevan sir for accepting to give this lecture under this endowment. And only one thing I wanted to add, because of his rather forcing us, we are constructing the 2nd floor at our institute with a lift. So I think in 3 months it will be ready. So because he has been a very voracious reader, and he is the person who often visits our library to borrow books and read the books. And so he wanted very badly a lift to reach the 1st floor and 2nd floor. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting our invitation. And I welcome all of you on this occasion. Over to Dr. R. Mahadevan, sir.
श्रीकान्तद्रुहिणोपमन्युतपनस्कन्देन्द्रनन्द्यादयः प्राचीना गुरवोऽपि यश्च करुणा लेशाद्गता गौरवं तं सर्वादिगुरुं मनोज्ञवपुषं मन्दस्मितालङ्कृतं चिन्मुद्राकृतमुद्रपाणिनलिनं चित्ते शिवं कुर्महे. எல்லாருக்கும் நமஸ்காரம். My pranams to all of you. Let me thank Sri K.S. Balasubramaniam for a wonderful introduction. I only pray God that I will deserve some of those that he mentioned in his introduction. We are celebrating today Appaya Dikshita Day. The very fact that we are doing this after 500 years of his Jayanti is proof enough of his great contribution to our Samskriti and samskara through Sanskritam. Appayya Dikshita lived between 1520 and 1593 of the Common Era. He lived in the Vellore region. And during his lifetime itself, he was a legend because of his mastery over Vedantic philosophy, over Sanskritic learning and devotion. Bhattoji Dikshita, a great grammarian and who is the author of Siddhanta Kaumudi, has said in his Tantra Siddhanta Deepika, Appayya Dikshitendrane Ashesha Vidya Guru Naham Mande Yatkriti Bodha Bodho Vidvad Avidvad Vibhajako Padhi. This means if you want to differentiate between a Pandita and Apandita, you have a test. Ask him whether he understands Appayya Dikshita's writings. If the answer is yes, then he is a Pandita. And if the answer is no, he is not. I am fortunate that KSRA did not give me this test before I started this talk. Otherwise, I would not be speaking to you. The Appayya Dikshitendra was a prolific writer. He produced 104 granthas during his lifetime. Only about 60 of them are available today. Balance are either lost or maybe some of them are available with their descendants or with their disciples. In Tamil classic literature, we were fortunate to have a Uve Swaminathan who painstakingly brought back what was considered to be lost, the great Tamil classics. In Sanskrit, unfortunately, we didn't have a Uve Swaminathan. So it is our misfortune that quite a few of the works of Appayya Dikshita may be lost forever. In today's talk, I will try to give an overview of the STOTRA GRANTHAS of ЩΡީМАД APPAYYA DİKŞITENDRA. The time is not enough for dealing with these STOTRA GRANTHAS in detail, even those that are available. Even among the STOTRA GRANTHAS, which is about 26, 25, 26, quite a few of them are not available. We know the names, but we do not have the text. Some of them have been brought to print by noble souls who belong to the Vani Vilas Sabha in Srirangam and the Appayya Dikshita Prakasha Granthavali series in Hyderabad. Broadly speaking, the works of Appayya Dikshita can be classified into Vedantic literature, Shastric literature, Stotra literature, and those that do not fall into any of these categories. Works like Shivarkamani Deepika belong to the first category. Works like Kuvalayananda, Chitra Mimamsa, and some Mimamsa works, they go into the second category. Varadarajastavam, Atmarpanastuti, these belong to the Stotra literature. And you have Vyakhyana of Yadavabhyudaya, of Paduka Sahasram. Works like this, they go into the miscellaneous category. Before I start dealing with the Stotra literature, in particular, I must highlight one unique feature of Srimad Appayya Dikshita's works. He has written Vyakhyana for many of his own works. This is quite different from what you normally see. Somebody writes the Moola Grantham and somebody else writes the commentary on that. But Appayya Dikshita has actually provided commentary to many of his works, including Stotra works. So one may wonder, why is it that he has chosen to do so? He himself gives the answer in the introduction to Shikarani Mala. Bhavam tesham pravishadayitum bhagna vachata vacham vrittim kurve vishama vivritim vriddha vartmanuganam. He says, to explain with clarity the bhava or the hidden sentiments behind the original text, and more importantly, to prevent some other commentator from misinterpreting my views, is the explanation given by Srimad Dikshita. There is one way of studying the Stotra literature, that is to go by the deity that is glorified in that particular Stotra. For instance, you have Margabandhu Stotram, which glorifies Shiva. Or you have Varadarajastavam, which glorifies Lord Varadaraja of Kanchipuram. Or Durga Chandrakalastuti, that actually glorifies Durga. Or Aditya Stotra Ratnam, that glorifies Aditya. That is one way of studying that. And there are some where multiple deities are glorified, like in Harihara Abheda Stuti. So that is one way of studying it. What I intend to do today is not to go by that route. I would like to go by the popularity. Some of his stotrams are very popular, some of them not so. So I would like to deal with it in that particular order. The most popular verse or stotram that is chanted in Pradosham time in Shiva temples, even today and for many years, is the Margabandhu Stotram. This Margabandhu Stotram was actually written glorifying the Lord of Virinchipuram, who is called Margabandhu Ishvara. When I was a little boy, I learnt this from listening to people chanting this in my village in the Shiva temple. And I have seen that it is being chanted for many, many years in the same tune. It is actually not changed very much, even though there are some YouTubes where they put some Carnatic raga and sing it in that fashion. But you find generally the same tune has been maintained. Shambho Mahadeva Deva Shiva Shambho Mahadeva Devesha Shambho Shambho Mahadeva Deva. This is the Pallavi. And after each stanza, you repeat the same Pallavi. This actually means glorification to Lord Shiva, or Shambhu. We will look at two passages, two stanzas of this. Because in each one of these stotras, I'm going to only highlight one or two shlokams so that we understand the style and the bhava, the content of what he wants to say in that stotra. Kandarpa Gnamisham Kalakantham Mahesham Mahavyomakesham Kundabhadantam Suresham Koti Surya Prakasham Bhaje Margabandhum Shambho Mahadeva Deva. Here, the main sentence is Bhaje Margabandhum. I actually worship the Lord in Virinchipura, Margabandhu. That's the main statement. And all the rest of the shlokam is actually adjective visheshanams. So, the first thing that he says is Kandarpa Darpagnam. Kandarpa is Manmatha. So, he removed the pride, or he blasted the pride of Manmatha. How does he say that? He removed Darpa. Darpa actually is the pride. His name is Kandarpa. It's very nice that he has used the word Kandarpa to actually indicate Manmatha in this shloka, because out of that Kandarpa, Shiva removed the Darpa, removed his pride. So that is Kandarpa Darpagnam. Then you find Kalakantham. Kalakantham refers to the story of Shiva drinking the poison that came out of the churning of the ocean. So, this is a story that everybody knows. Then he says Mahavyomakesham. Mahavyomakesham is when Ganga descended from Swargaloka to Bhuloka at the request of Bhagirathan, or at the appeal of Bhagirathan. Shiva had his matted hair which swept over the entire Antariksham, entire Akasha, and prevented Ganga from coming down. Ganga got locked up in the locks of Shiva. So it is Mahavyomakesham. So the first, Kalakantham, shows his compassion, because it is out of compassion that he decided to drink that poison. And Mahavyomakesham shows his power, the ability to stop the fierce flow of the waters of Ganga. Actually, referring to these two great feats, that is swallowing the poison or drinking the poison and locking up Ganga in his hair, Appayya Dikshita in another stotram, Brahma Tarkastavam, he says, Ganga dhrita nabhavata shivapavaniti nasvadito madhurayit yapikalakotaha samrakshanaya jagatam karunatirекate karmadvayam kalitametat ananyasadhyam. He says, Shiva did not drink the poison because it was very sweet. He didn't do it because of that. And he did not lock up Ganges in his hair because taking a bath in Ganges is highly purifying. He did not do it because of that. He did it because of compassion, to save the world from both the poison, Kalahala Visham, as well as the force of Ganga water. The next shloka that we will see, Nityam Chidananda Rupam Ninhuta Shesha Lokesha Vairi Pratapam Kartaswaragendra Chapam Prativasam Bhaje Divya Sanmarga Bandhum Shambho Mahadeva Deva. Being a staunch Advaitin, he has to bring in this Nityam Chidananda Rupam. That's why the next stanza says Chidananda Rupam. Probably he got inspiration from Adi Shankara's Nirvana Shatkam, where he says, Shivananda Rupam, Shivoham, Shivoham. Because there are a lot of similarities between the works of Shankara and the works of Appayya Dikshita. Also, he must have taken inspiration from Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. So he starts with saying, Nityam Chidananda Rupam, Nityam eternal and Chidananda Rupam, intelligence and bliss. Then it says, Ninhuta Shesha Lokesha Vairi Pratapam. Here the Lokesha is actually Indra. Lokesha, Ashesha Lokesha Vairi is Ravana. Ravana's Pratapam, how was actually put down by Shiva because Ravana wanted to shift Kailasa with his 20 mighty hands, and just a little gentle pressure from the left toe of Parameshwara not only crushed his arms but also crushed his pride. That is Ninhutasesha Lokesha Vairi Pratapam. Kartaswara is gold. Kartaswara Agendra is Meru. Aga is actually mountain, Agendra is Meru. Kartaswara Agendra is golden Meru mountain. And that was taken as the bow by Lord Shiva. This is for Tripura Samhara. In Tripura Samhara, he took Meru as his bow. And so, Kartaswaragendra Chapam indicates the power of Shiva and the Puranic story of Tripura Samhara. That is why Shiva is also called Tripurantaka. Then he puts the next adjective as Krittivasam. Krittivasam is a wearer of animal skin. This refers to the Dwarukavana episode, where the rishis who were enraged by Lord Shiva appearing as a mendicant, they, from the sacrificial fire, they brought out an elephant and a tiger and sent it to destroy Shiva. And Shiva killed them and wore their skin as he took it as his dress. So, you will see that Appayya Dikshitendra, being master of Puranas and Itihasas, he brings in every one of his stotrams a great deal of Puranic lore which you can otherwise not find, because he is a master of not just 1, 2, 3 Puranas. Every Purana that was available, he is a master. And he will bring the episode from those Puranas and weave it into his shlokams, into his stotrams. And if you want to find out what is actually being mentioned in that particular bit, I just explained this to show you, on the face of it, it is difficult for you to understand what he is actually trying to bring in, unless and until you go into his Vyakhyana and find out which particular Purana that is taken from. Krittivasa, probably he took it from Malavikagnimitra. The Mangala Shlokam is Ekaishwarye Sthitepi Pranata Bahupale Yasvayam Krittivasaha. Krittivasa is quite a common epithet that is used for describing Shiva. The poem, this Margabandhu poem, ends with a Phalashruti. Appayya Yajvendra Geetam Stotra Rajam Pathedyastu Bhaktya Prayane Tasyartha Siddhim Vidhatte Margamadhye Bhayancha Shutosho Maheshaha Shambho Mahadeva Deva. Please note that Appayya Dikshita in his Phalashruti, in most stotras, in some stotras it is still Kaivalya Mandal, he does not give a Phalashruti like you will get moksha, you will get Kaivalya, you will get Vairagyam and Jnanam. He doesn't say like that. He says only in a very few cases. In most cases, he will give you practical Phalashruti. Practical Phalashruti in the sense, freedom from fear, freedom from obstacles in journey, freedom from accidents. You know, he will say Vipadbhyaha, for instance, in Durga Chandrakala Sthiti, when the days are difficult, when the time is a difficult thing and you have got difficult surroundings, you will get out of it, is what he will say. So he differs from the usual thing where people say Vairagyam, Jnanam and Kaivalyam and Moksham, but he differs and gives some practical Phalashruti in most of his stotrams. After this beautiful Shiva Stuti, we will move on to a Devi Stuti, which is Durga Chandrakala Stuti. There is a Karna Parampara anecdote which is associated with this particular stotram. For some time, Appayya Dikshita was living in Chidambaram, And after having darshan of Nataraja once, when he was coming out in the Sannidhi, he was feeling rather weak. So he just sat down. Some old Brahmin came and asked him, "Why are you sitting here? You look very tired." And I believe he said, "Ashaktama irukku." Ashaktama irukku means I'm feeling weak. And that old Brahmin replied, "Nida Shaktiya vitutiye, adnala da ashaktama irukku," and walked away. That was like a flash of lightning. It hit him because till that time, I believe, Appayya Dikshita was only worshipping Lord Shiva in exclusion of Parvati. He was till that time either involved in Vedantic literature or in writing stotrams and other works in praise of Lord Shiva. So suddenly it struck him that this is what is being pointed out. So he meditated on Devi and produced this Durga Chandrakala Stuti. Probably it was the Navaratri time, and so he thought that would be an appropriate content, appropriate theme for doing this stotram. How far it's true, I don't know, but this is a sort of a Karna Parampara story that revolves around this Durga Chandrakala Stuti. Also, recently it's been made popular because during Corona time, there was a lot of difficulties, and Kanchi Shankaracharya advocated that this should be done, Parayanam of Durga Chandrakala Stuti should be done so that people get over their difficulties. Why this name Durga Chandrakala Stuti is something that sometimes is not very clear. But Chandrakala is actually the digits of the moon, and the Chandra's kalas are supposed to be 16. If you take from Amavasya to Paurnami, it is 16 days. And Chandra Kala are 16 in number. This particular stotram has 16 stanzas, 16 verses. If you include the initial Mangala Shlokam and the Palashruti, then it becomes 18. But actually the main part, the main content of the stotram is 16 in number. There are three, he actually describes in very condensed form the Devi Mahatmyam, the Prathama Charitram, Madhyama Charitram and Uttama Charitram in the first few verses. In fact, in the first 8, he almost completely covers the entire Devi Mahatmyam. And the first stanza, first verse of this is Abhyarthanena sarasi ruhasambhavasya yakvodita bhagavadakshipidhana leelam Vishveshwari vipadapagamane purastat Mata mamastu madhukaita bhayor nihantri. Sarasi ruhas, we will quickly go through the meaning of this particular shlokam, and then I will highlight the special points. Sarasi ruhasambhavaha is Brahma, because he was born out of lotus. He appeals to Mahamaya, who was responsible for the Yoga Nidra of Mahavishnu. So, on account of this appeal, Mahamaya, which actually has the influence of apparently putting Mahavishnu in sleep, comes out of Mahavishnu's sleeping pose or posture, and as a result, Mahavishnu wakes up. Madhu Kaitabha were the two asuras who were wanting to go after Brahma. And that is why Brahma had to make an appeal to Mahamaya. And because of Mahamaya getting out of Mahavishnu's Yoga Nidra, Mahavishnu got up, fought Madhu Kaitabha and destroyed them. This is the story. Here, Mahamaya or Devi by herself is not killing the asuras. Madhu and Kaitabha are not killed by Mahamaya herself, Devi herself. Devi acts only as an instrument, as a preraka, so that it results in Mahavishnu fighting Madhu and Kaitabha and killing them. For this, the Appayya Dikshita in his commentary gives justification as to how he has used the word Madhukaitabhayor Nihantri. The word Nihantri being used here indicates prerakatvam. It is not directly killing, but it is being responsible for killing. And Devi Mahatmyam's Adhyaya 2, 3 and 4 deals with Mahishasuravadham. That is the Madhyama Charitram. And Mahishasuravadham is covered by the next stanza, next verse of Durga Chandrakala Stuti. Prang nirjareshu nihitaihi nijashaktileshaihi eki bhavad bhirudita khilaloka guptyai sampanna shastra nikaracha tadayudhasthai mata mamastu mahishantakari purastat. This is the Mahishasuravadham. Mahishasuravadham is covered in 3 adhyayas, and the whole thing has been condensed by Appayya Dikshita in one slokam. Actually, you will see that he is a great master of preci writing. That is, very big adhyayams are being condensed into one verse. And that is the beauty of this Durga Chandrakala Stuti. The 4th verse is a description of Shumbha Nishubha Vadha, which is part of the Uttama Charitram in Devi Mahatmyam. This starts from the 5th Adhyaya. In between there is some Duta Samvada, Dhumralochana Vada, and Rakta Bija Vada. These are actually skipped by Dikshita, and he straightaway goes to Shumbha Nishubha Vadam. Praleya Shailatanaya Tanukanti Sampat Koshodita Kuvalayachhavicharu Deha Narayani Namadabhipsitakalpavalli Supritima Bahatu Shumbha Nishubhahantri. Here, Narayani is the name of the Devi responsible for Shumbha Nishubha Vadham. Here, to describe Narayani, he uses 3 adjective phrases, Visheshanas. Praleya Shailatanaya is one. Praleya Shaila is snow-covered mountain, Himalaya, and Himavan. Himavan's Tanaya is Parvati. Tanukanti Sampat Koshodita is the 2nd adjective, which means born out of the sheath or kosha, which is the collection of Sharira Kanti. And the 3rd one is Kuvalayat Chavicharu Deha, possessed of a body that's beautiful like the lily flower. This is easy to understand, but it's difficult to understand the real meaning of the adjective Tanukanti Sampat Koshodita, because this is not described in Devi Mahatmyam. You cannot get a clue as to what is the Tanukanti Sampat Koshodita from Devi Mahatmyam. So if you refer to Dikshita's Vyakhyana, he takes it out of Shiva Purana, Vayu Samhita Shiva Puranam is the source for this Tanukati Sampat Koshodita. Shumbha and Nishumbha, after doing tapas, they got a boon from Brahma, saying they will not be killed by any male, also by any female born out of a female, out of the womb of a female. This is the sort of varam that Shumbha and Nishumbha got from Brahma. So, they have to find, the Devas have to find a way to get round to this particular boon. So, Brahma goes to Shiva and makes an appeal that he must provide a solution. And what was done was Shiva, in jest, that is, it's a sort of a teasing, he calls Parvati as Kali. Kali actually is dark complexioned lady. And getting upset with this remark from Shiva, Devi got out of her dark complexioned kosha, or the outer periphery, and became Gauri. And the dark complexioned kosha that came out became Kali. And that Kali was the one that actually went and destroyed Shumbha Nishumbha. This is the story that comes not in Devi Mahatmyam, but it comes in Shiva Purana. And Dikshitendra actually quotes very profusely that particular portion of the Purana from which this story is taken. Actually, because this Devi came out of the kosha of Parvati, she is called Kaushiki. And the name Kaushiki appears in Devi Mahatmya. You can see the name Kaushiki. But why that Kaushiki and how it all happened does not come from Devi Mahatmya. So you will have to go back to Appaya Dikshita's Vyakhyana and go to Shiva Purana to be able to get the meaning of this Tanukanti. So the first 8 verses of Durga Chandrakala Stuti that completes the Devi Mahatmyam dealing with Utpatti, then you have the Daitya Hananam and the Stuti. You find that he covers the Stuti of Brahma that happens in the Prathama Charitram, then Surarshibhihi, that is Devas and the Rishis in the Madhyama Charitram, and in Agnimukhihi, all the Devas that are assembled with Agni as their head. That Stuti is also covered by Dikshita in his Durga Chandrakala Stuti mentioned by him. In the verses 9 to 11, Dikshitendra draws from Varaha Purana the exploits of Devi and the Phalashruti as found therein. 12 and 13 draws from Harivamsha the benefits of Devi worship as Moksha Pradayini. Shloka 14 has an interesting episode relating to Banasura. This is Banasura. This part of the Banasura episode is not covered in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's drawn from Harivamsha. We know the story of Usha, the daughter of Banasura, who was in love with Aniruddha and got Aniruddha with the help of Chitralekha into Banasura's palace. And it is said that Banasura got Aniruddha bound by snakes, Nagas, in the fight between them. Narada, who had seen this, goes to Dwaraka and informs Krishna, who along with Balarama comes to fight Banasura and defeats him. That is the story that we get in Srimad Bhagavatam. But how did he get out of this snake, the snake that is binding Aniruddha? That part is not explained. And Aniruddha, seeing that Usha is heartbroken and cannot be easily pacified, he prays to Devi. And Devi in turn releases him from his Nagapasha. This is the story that comes from Harivamsha. And Appayya Dikshita has taken that and put it inside this shlokam. बाणासुरप्रहितपन्नगबन्धमोक्ष तद्बाहुदर्पदलनादुषया च योगः प्राद्युम्निनादृतमलभ्यत यत्प्रसादात् सा मे शिवा सकलमप्यशुभं क्षिणोतु is the verse that explains this particular episode. So, after this stotram of Durga Chandrakalastuti, we'll move on to stotram that glorifies Varadaraja. Actually, Dikshitar lived in Kanchipuram for some time, and he was a great devotee of Varadaraja in spite of being also a Shiva devotee. His Ishtadevata is Shiva. However, you can see by reading through Varadaraja that you will not believe, you will think that he is a great devotee of Varadaraja. That is how you will get an impression if you read Varadarajastavam. It's a kavyam of about 106 shlokas, all set to Vasanta Tilaka Vratam. He explains himself as to why he took up this project of writing Varadarajastavam. Bhaktanu jigrikshaya svikrita divya rupasya bhagavato Varadarajasya padaravinda prabhriti kuntala bhara paryantam sakala vayava anusandhana janya paramanantam. He says is the reason why he took up writing this Varadarajastava. The structure of this kavyam is as follows. After the usual Mangala Shlokam and expression of his own inadequacy or Vinayam, in the first 5 shlokas, the author describes Kanchi Nagaram. That comes in next 4 verses. Then starts the description of the temple. And it starts with the description of the 5 prakarams around the temple. And Srimad Dikshita compares these 5 prakarams of Varadaraja temple to the Pancha Koshas, 5 koshas. You have to go around these 5 prakarams before you go to the 24 steps through which you must go to enter the Garbhagriha. He describes in these shlokams the prakarams, the Punyakoti Vimanam and the 24 steps. Let's look at that shlokam that describes the Pancha Prakarams. Sauvarnasala samanupravishya Koshanivat Tridashanayaka Kopi Dhanyaha Anandavalyudita Divya Phalanurupam Rupam Tvadiyamavalokayate Bhirupam. Here, the Pancha Koshas, they come up in the Anandavalli portion of Taittiriya Upanishad. Just as a person who is after Atmajnanam has to get over these Panchakoshas, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya Koshas, in order to reach the Atma, Paramatman, you have to go around these Pancha Prakarams before you can reach the Lord. This sort of upama is a great delight, particularly to students of Vedanta. There is another similar verse where the author, who himself is a master of Alankara Shastra, because he has written books which are standard textbooks. He has written Kuvalayananda, Chitramimamsa and all that. He himself says that the Alankaras are futile in describing Varadaraja, Lord Varadaraja. Sparsham yayos samadhigamya jhatityahalya. Sorry, this is not the shlokam. Yasmin jahatyatishayoktiralankrititvam nyunopamattvamupama samupaiti sarva sukshmasvabhavakalana pichana pratarkya tadvarnayami bhavataha kathamabhirupyam. Atishayokti, upama and swabhavokti, they are three well-known alankaras. One is exaggeration, the other is comparison, simile, and third is a natural description. All of which fail in describing your beauty, says Dikshita. Katham bhavataha abhirupyam varnayami is what he asks. This Dikshitendra, who himself is a master of Alankara Shastra, says, none of the Alankara that I know can be used to describe you. Very interesting statement. To enjoy the Kavya Rasam of Varadaraja-stava, I'll quote another interesting verse. This verse says that many kavis describe the padam of Lord as Aravindam. Padam, pada pankajam we say, pada kamalam we say. It's very common to describe the feet of the Lord as lotus. He says, I don't want to do it that way. I think it is not appropriate to describe your feet as lotus. Your feet is sanctifying, as can be evidenced by Ahalya and by Bhudevi. But the lotus is born in dirty mud and spends its entire life in dirty mud. So the lotus that cannot cleanse itself, how can it cleanse anybody else? So it is wrong to say that your feet are like lotus. This is the sort of bhava that comes out in this verse. Sparsham yayoho samadhigamya jhatityahalya devi cha bhurabhavadujhita sarvapanka tabhyam ghateta samata bhavatah padabhyam ajanma pankavasatehe kathamam bujasya. Panka means dirty mud. Panka also means sins. So the author is playing on the double meaning of the word panka. It removes all the sins, the feet of the Lord. And the lotus spends its entire life in dirty mud. That is the statement that the author is making. He ends Varadaraja-stavam with an appeal to Lord Varadaraja. Antarmama sphuratu santatamantaratman ambhojalochana tava shritahasti shailam. May the Lord always be in my thoughts, is the appeal that he is making. Actually, this kavya is very typical of big kavyas that are written by various other people, including Yadavabhyudayam. More or less, this is a condensed version of a larger kavya that you can study. It comes with the same sort of content. starting with the Mangala Shloka, starting with Vinaya expression and his own inadequacy, then going on to describe the city of Kanchipuram, describing the temple, describing the various angas of the Lord, starting from the feet right up to this thing, and the Punyakoti Vimanam, and giving ultimately, Atmanubhavam of Varadaraja's vision. All this is contained in this 106 shlokas. Actually, Yadava, he takes some hints or tips also from Yadava Abhyudayam. For him, he has written a beautiful Vyakhyanam. So, in Yadava Abhyudayam, Vedanta Deshika says, Sakavihi kathyate srashta ramate yatra bharati. Where a kavi is a true kavi only, where in his work Saraswati delightfully sports, is the sort of expression that he says. This Varadarajastavam is a typical example of such a kavitvam. We have seen one on Devi and one on Mahavishnu and one on Shiva. But there is another popular stotram that Appayya Dikshita has written, which is on two deities, Shiva and Vishnu. This is actually composed in Chidambaram, where standing before Nataraja's Sannidhi, standing in the Sannidhi of Nataraja, you can see Govindaraja to your left and you can see Nataraja in front. And simultaneously, you can have darshan of both Shiva and Vishnu. And the first shlokam of this stotram runs like this. Ma Ramanam Uma Ramanam Panadhara Talpam Panadhara Kalpam Muramathanam Puramathanam Vande Banarim Asamabanarim. This is actually, the stotram consists of 8 stanzas. It is in Arya meter. The first word, in every pada, you will find the first word denotes Vishnu, and immediately followed by a second word that denotes Shiva. In the first stanza, Ma Ramanam represents Govindaraja, Ma being Lakshmi, so it's Lakshmi's consort is Govindaraja. And Uma Ramanam is Parvati's husband, and that is Nataraja. So Govindaraja and Nataraja come in the same padam. Similarly, you will find Panadhara Talpam is Adishesha as a bed, so Govindaraja has Adishesha as his bed. And Panadhara Kalpam is Shiva wears the ornaments as snakes as his ornaments. Muramathanam is Lord Vishnu is Murari. Asura called Mura was actually vanquished by him. And Puramathanam is Tripura Samhara. So he is the vanquisher of the 3 cities. Vande Banarim Asama Banarim. Banarim is Banasura's enemy, and that is Vishnu, who actually fought Banasura and destroyed him. Asama Banarim is a very interesting word that he has used to denote Shiva. Asama Bana, Asama is actually odd number, Sama is even number, Asama is odd number, and Manmatha has 5 arrows, Panchabana. So Asama Bana is the word that, Asama Banaha is the terminology that is used to denote Manmatha, who has 5 arrows, and his enemy is Shiva. So Banarim, Asama Banarim. This is a very interesting thing to note, is normally in Sanskrit, if you talk about 2 entities, Rama and Lakshmana, for instance, you say Ramaha, Lakshmanaha, Cha. Chakaram is used to indicate 2 people. But here, Appayya Dikshitendra has not used Chakaram. It is not Ma Ramanam, Uma Ramanam, Cha. No, there is no Cha there. That actually indicates to you that he doesn't want two entities. He doesn't say that there are two entities. Both are same. So he's wanting people not to interpret that there are two entities, but there's only one entity. And that one entity is both Govindaraja and Nataraja. Very interesting way Sri Appaya Dikshitendra has constructed this. We will just see one other stanza in this stotram. Gonayanam ilanayanam ravishashi netram ravinduvanyaksham smaratanayam guhatanayam mande vaikuntham udupatichudam. So the meaning is simple. Gonayanam is Gopalaha, that is Krishna. Ila Nayanam, Ila is Vrishabham, so Vrishabha is Shiva. And Ravishashi Netram is Vishnu, who has both sun and moon as his eyes. And Ravindu Vanhi Aksham, that is both sun, moon and Agni as his three eyes. And Smaratanayam, Guhatanayam. Manmatha is the son of Vishnu, and so Smaratanayam. And Guhatanayam is his Guha, Shiva's son. Vande Vaikuntham, Vaikuntha also refers to Narayana. Udupati Chodam is Chandra Chodam, that is Shiva. I am mentioning this, the speciality here is Gonayanam, Ilanayanam can apply to both Shiva and Vishnu. Go also represents Prithvi and Ko also represents obviously cattle. So Gonayanam can also mean both. Similarly, Ilanayanam, Ila is Vrishabham, Ila is also Prithvi. So he has used two terms which may mean whichever way you want. You can use both for Vishnu and for Shiva, the same two words. Because he is a master of Alankara Shastra and he is master of using words that have Shlesha. Shlesha that need not necessarily mean you have to break it differently. The same words can mean two different things and that can still be a very good Shlesha. That shows his kavitvam. That is why I wanted to put this also. This poem actually is an indication of the fact that Srimad Appaya Dikshita considered both Vishnu and Shiva as Parabrahma Swarupam. He did not see any difference between the two. And as I said earlier about the non-use of Chakaram, he believed that God is one, because he is basically an Advaitin. And so, as a Saguna Brahma Upasaka, it can be any form. He will still see the ultimate truth in that God. We'll move on to the next Stotra Grantha, which also is a very popular Stotra Grantha on Shiva, which is Atmarpana Stuti. Kaste bodhum prabhavati param devadeva prabhavam yasmaditham vividharachana srishtiresha babhuva bhakti grahya tvamasi tadapi tvamaham bhakti matrat stotum vancham yati mahadidam sahasam me sahasva. The general meaning is, O Lord, who can fathom your magnificent glory, from whom this multifarious creation came into existence? You can be approached only through devotion, and I wish to praise you only through devotion. And then he says, Sahasam me sahasva. Forgive me for this audacity. This is the general meaning. In Saundarya Lahari, you can see a similar sentiment. Pranantum stotum va katham akrita punyaha prabhavati. More or less the same sentiment, he brings it here. Here he says Srashta. Actually, just as Taittiriya Upanishad said, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayant abhisam vishanti. The same sentiment is brought in this shloka. He calls him Srashta. There is another very popular shlokam in this Atmarpana Stuti, which is Arkadrona Prabhati Kusumaihi Archanante Vidheyam Yena Prapyam Smarahara Phalam Moksha Samrajya Lakshmihi Yeta Janannapi Shiva Shiva Vyarthayan Kalamatman Atmadrohi Karana Vivasho Bhuyasadhav Patami. He is saying that Arka and Drona, which is Erk and Kutumbai, which is very easily available, that is enough to please you. And then in return, what is it you will give? You will give Moksha Samrajya Lakshmi. When that is the case, I am wasting my time and not spending time in my devotion to you, is what he says. But this is a common sentiment you find in most Shiva devotees. Tirumular says in his Tirumandiram, Yavarkamam Iraivarkoru Pachilai. He doesn't even mention what Pachilai it is. A green leaf is good enough for offering to the Lord, and you will get Moksha Samrajya in return. Similarly, in Gita also you see Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, etc. There is another Atmarpana Stuti Shlokam, which is also a very common sentiment you will find in most stotras. Kita nagastarvayiti va kinna santisthaleeshu Tvatpadam bhurha parimalodvahi manda nileshu Teshvekam va srijapunarimam nathadinartiharin Atoshan mam mridabhavamahangaranadyam lutantam. He says that the breeze from your feet, goes through trees, goes through worms, goes through snakes, and they all get that benefit. Make me into one of those, but let me have the breeze of your lotus feet, is the appeal in this. Very, very similar sentiment is given by Tirunavakarasha. Pulvai pirakkinum punniya unnadi unnadi enmanatte valvadirikka varandara vendam ivvayahatte. Tirunavakarasha, more or less similar sentiment he expresses in his Tevaram. There is another similar sort of stotram that he has written, which is called Manasollasa Stuti. Manasollasa Stuti is addressing his own mind as to that it should not waste its time in worldly matters, but devote its time towards praying to the Lord and contemplating on the Lord. There are several other stotrams which I will not go into detail because time is running out. So I just want to mention them and just read out one or two shlokams. A very recently discovered stotram is Shivamide Stotram. There is a stotram called Shivamide Stotram. And that actually was discovered, I think, by accident with one of the descendants of Appayya Dikshita in Adayar. And Dr. Gokula Krishna Iyer actually did this and was guided by Mahamahopadhyaya Manidravid Shastrigal. And that has about 40 and odd slokams. And that reads, I just want to mention that. Vailakshanyam dhamasu yasyatrishu siddham Bhojyad bhoktrar bhogata yevam trividhacha Yasmachrutya nasti cha kinchit vyatiriktam Tam chinmatram sakshinamekam shivamide एकोऽध्येयः स्वात्मतयेति हि वेदान्ते योऽन्यत् सर्वं श्रूयत एष च सन्त्यज्य सर्वव्यापी भाति च भगवान् यो देवः तं चिन्मात्रं साक्षिणमेकं शिवमीडे. This is a stotram I came across because of Dr. Gokula Krishnaiah. Lastly, I just want to mention that there is one stotram called Aditya Stotra Ratnam, which he has produced. To be frank, it is very difficult to understand the meaning only by reading this stotram. If you do not go into his Vyakhyanam, it is impossible actually to get at the root of what he wants to say. The content of this stotram is a great description of Surya Mandalam. The very first shlokam of this stotram describes this Yandanam, the Ratham of Surya Bhagavan. And the extent of detail that he has gone into to make up this one single stotram is drawn from 8 different Puranams and Rigveda. Brahmanda Puranam, Varaha Puranam, Matsya Puranam, Kurma Puranam, Shiva Puranam, Linga Puranam and Rigveda. He has taken from all these and described the chariot of Surya Bhagavan. He is giving the dimension of that Ratham as 10,000 yojanas in length and 10,000 yojanas in breadth. And in his Vyakhyana he says that as per Vayu Puranam, this is the dimension of that Ratham. But he also says that Linga Puranam gives it as 9,000 yojanas. Then he gives a justification as to how that can be 10,000 and how this can be 9,000 and what is the explanation. Then he says, Surya Mandalam out of the 10,000 occupies 9,000 and the rest 10,000 by peripheral gods like Apsaras, Yakshas, Kinnaras. They are the people who occupy the balance 1,000. So the extent of detail to which he has gone in this Aditya Stotra Ratnam is amazing. There was one last stotram that he has written, which is Shiva Mahima Kalika Stuti. Shiva Mahima Kalika Stuti. It's very strongly drawn from, draws its content from Purva Mimamsa. So, Yat Sarvatra Kratuphalam Yadakhila Yajnadita Mahitam Yat Sakala Deva Rupam Jyotistadupasmahe Somam. This is the first shlokam of this Shiva Mahima Kalika Stuti. I would like to conclude now by just mentioning that the last years of his life, Dikshitendra spent in Chidambaram. The very last verse that he composed was in the Sannidhi of Nataraja. And as we say, a man's devotion is seen by the last words that he expresses. And his last words before he gave up this body in the presence or in the Sannidhi of Nataraja speaks volumes of his devotion to Shiva. And Abhati Kataka Sabha, Abhati Hataka Sabha, just give me a second. It starts with Abhati Hataka Sabha, which is in the present tense, Vartamana Kalam. That is, Dikshitendra probably was seeing Nataraja before him. The Kanaka Sabha and Nataraja dancing, he was seeing before him. That was his last words. So there is no doubt he was such a great devotee that God, Nataraja, appeared before him before he left his mortal remains. So, summing up, there are a few things that we can see as highlights of all the Stotra Granthas of Appayya Dikshita. Srimad Appayya Dikshita, firstly, was a great Shiva devotee. You can see it in all his Stotra Granthams. Second, he has written commentaries to many of the stotrams himself. That makes it easy for us to understand where he draws his sources, his material from, and also to understand the inner meaning of these stotrams. Thirdly, as I said earlier, he gives Phalashruti, which is quite practical. So because he was a Grihastha, unlike Adi Shankara, and he had gone through several problems that we normally experience. During his time, he was shuttling between cities, Kanchipuram, Padaivalam, and Vellore, and he was probably having difficulties with people plotting against him and all that kind of thing. So he put practical appeals to God in his Phalashruti. Fourthly, his Kavitvam comes out very well in many of his Stotra Granthas. It is unfortunate that we don't have all of them with us to enjoy the complete works of Appayya Dikshita. So let me conclude by thanking KSRA for giving me this opportunity to give a talk on the Stotra Granthas of Appayya Dikshita. It is by no means complete, but it's a small attempt in understanding Appayya Dikshita's contribution in stotrams. Thank you.
Say, beautiful overview of Appayya Dikshita Stotras. Unlike some of the other devotional poets, Appayya Dikshita has not only given the eulogized the gods, but it is historical, cultural ramifications as well. That has been beautifully brought out by him. That is while describing Varadarajastava, how Varadarajastava has brought out the Pancha Prakaras in the form of Pancha Kosas and all those things. I don't want to, having listened all these things from him directly, I don't want to go into it, all those things again. But they say the Margabandhu Stotra is influenced by Nandavanathilorandi. That also is there. Of course, if you look into Varadarajastava, there are lots of what is called informations. One thing is the pranayama. He uses pranayama, that is when we are diving into water, we take this guard as a safety measure, lifeguard. So the Kumbhaka pranayama is the lifeguard with which one can enter into to meditate on God, like that. The examples which he uses. And he uses some other proverbs also. Okay, in this way, we can go on adding. I don't want to, what is called, take away the pleasure of enjoying his lecture. So I don't go into all those things. But I want to just draw only one attention. Last year we have published 3 books of Appayya Dikshita. Kuppuswami Sastri Institute has published 3 books. Upakrama Parakrama, Chitrapata and Purva Mimamsa Vishaya Sangraha. All the 3 are the works of Appayya Dikshita and we have brought out. And I too can take a small pride that from Vishnu Mohan Foundation we have brought out 8 stotras of Appayya Dikshita with the translation, notes and all those things, and that has been edited by me. Okay. With these things, we would like to present a small gift to Mr. Mahadevan as a token of gratitude. And I thank the endowment makers, Dr. V. Raghavan's family, and Professor R. N. Sampath, who has contributed, who has instituted the endowment in the name of Kuppuswami Sastri, who also is a great Mimamsaka. He had the title Mimamsakasari and all those things. And he is the one who is responsible for continuing the Mimamsa studies here in India. Here I don't mean in Madras. Here it means in India. And Appayya Dikshita is referred to by none other than Khandadeva as Mimamsaka Murdhanya, the head of the Mimamsaka. And Appayya Dikshita used to quote Mimamsa at the drop of the heart. And he has said, Siva Mahima Kalika Stuti and V. Ramamurthy. These are the people who have endowed, and Sri K. Dr. Professor E.R. Ramabai, who has instituted an endowment in the name of her grandfather Mahamabadhyaya K. Lakshmana Sastri. So all the great people and all the people who have created these endowments and all of you and the what is called the office bearers and the staff members and the research scholars of KSRI for making all these things possible and enjoyable. And finally, not the least as they say, to the speaker, Sri Mahadevan, for bringing out a beautiful, as he has ЩΡީΜΑД APPAYYA DİKŞITENDRA, that is Appaya Dikshita is the benchmark, and using Stotra literature, the benchmark nature of Appaya Dikshita has been brought out by him. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
ஆமாம் இல்லை நிறைய விட்டுட்டேன் நான்